situating ourselves in this place is critical. Gawatsi kautduista e shashka zena hanusta. Wishi sao ba hopa stroba wisha za stranaishi strawa matsani. My great-grandmother Edith Lorenzo taught me how to introduce myself in our ancient language called Keres. That is the language I just spoke to welcome you. When I think about my story, I'm reminded of my 5th grade class. At that time, I didn't know how to express myself, but now I do. I'm from the Pueblo of Laguna tribe, which is located 60 miles west of Albuquerque, New Mexico. My clans are Roadrunner and Turkey, and my Indian name is Kautdui. I'm so honored to be here with all of you today. Now, Mrs. Riley, she was the scariest teacher that I ever had because she had strict expectations for her students, like raise our hand in class and turn in our homework on time. Now, Mrs. Riley was one of my fondest teachers because she did have those high expectations. On the last day of class, while the chairs were flipped up on the filthy desks and the classroom was packed up, we all sat on the floor and Mrs. Riley gave us our last history lesson. At that time, I realized for the first moment that my people's stories were not included in those history books. I realized that I didn't have a voice at that time. Situating ourselves in this place is critical. We are on the traditional homelands of the Dana Atam and Pasquayaqui people. It's a miracle that I'm here today, and quite frankly, it's a miracle for any Indigenous person to be here. Before colonization, there was about 12 to 15 million Indigenous people in the land we now call the United States of America. By 1890, there was about 250,000 Indigenous people. I'll repeat that again. By 1890, there was about 250,000 Indigenous people. Our people were wiped out because of war, colonization, genocide, and disease. Many of our people's stories weren't told. So what do I do with this precious life that I've been given? I made it my mission to proclaim the narratives of Indigenous people through photography and digital storytelling, or short videos. So when I think about these short videos, it's quite humbling as a storyteller because you have the responsibility to carry on the narratives of your people. About 4 years ago, along with 8 other undergraduates at the U of A, I created a short film that caught the attention of Mrs. Michelle Obama in the White House. So how do you capture the story or capture the attention of one of the most prominent leaders in modern day history? You tell your story. I've always felt a burden to be a spokeswoman for Indigenous people, just like today, simply because there's so few of us, especially at the U of A. During my master's program, I had the opportunity to shadow an executive level administrator. During that time in my master's academic career, I felt pretty confident in expressing who I was as a student. In one particular meeting, I walked into a room in Old Main and saw about 30 administrators. In other words, people who make decisions for thousands of students. As I looked around and I scanned the room, I saw no other people of color but me. Even though I know who I was and where I came from, I shrieked back in fear because I didn't feel comfortable in that space. When it was my turn to confront and to address the administrators, I just gave my simple, robotic introduction. Hi, my name is Amanda Cheromiah. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm a doctoral student at the University of Arizona. The glaring eyes in the room silenced me. Even though I didn't feel welcomed in that space, I was reminded of the gift that I've been given from the Lord. The gift and the ability to tell stories on a digital platform. I bought my first iPhone in 2009. This changed my life forever, because on this device, I learned how to make digital stories or short videos using the app called iMovie. At the time, I was a coordinator for the Office of Early Academic Outreach at the University of Arizona. And through my position, I was able to capture and make a lot of films, especially of families from South Tucson. At our closing events, we would welcome the families that we loved to campus, and EAO would show my videos that I created. The kids would get so excited to see themselves on the big screen. And the moms, they would take out their phone and take a picture of the projection screen because they were so proud to see their kids featured in a film. The reactions of those families deeply inspired me to continue making digital stories. Now, as a filmmaker, my skills have greatly developed since the time I bought my first iPhone. It's amazing what technology can do, and it's amazing how you can share your story on such a small device. So in January of 2015, I first heard of the Michelle Obama Near Peer Mentoring Challenge. It was about a month before the submission deadline. The task was to create a short video and showcase a mentoring program and show the impact on the community. I knew that if we were to submit a video, it would require a lot of work. But if we won, we would get to meet Michelle Obama. And she would be the commencement speaker at the U of A graduation ceremony. I thought to myself, gosh, if we won, we would put Indigenous people on the map at the U of A in a brand new way. So finally, after about 2 weeks of contemplating what to do and if I was actually going to submit a video, I mustered up enough courage and finally committed to the project. See, the odds were already stacked against me because I have a visual impairment called Stargardt's. In both of my eyes, I can't see small detail. So it takes me about twice as long to complete tasks. But we have things, as a visually impaired creative artist, we have things in similar with full-sighted people, like procrastinate. So about the first 3 or 4 days, the students and I worked on our digital story narrative about Native SOAR. Native SOAR is a multi-generational mentoring program that serves Indigenous youth here in Southern Arizona. This program means so much to me because as an undergraduate and graduate student, this program transformed my life. And it ultimately set me on a career path to serve Indigenous students at the U of A. So as we crafted our Native SOAR narrative, finally, about 9 days before the submission deadline, we began filming. Our story was about how our Native SOAR students were resilient people in this day and age. We shared about how they love to give back to their communities and how they love to serve the American Indian youth. After about 200 hours of filming, we finally finished the movie and turned it in about 5 minutes before the deadline. If you watched our movie, you would get the same sense and the same feeling as when you watch one of our Tucson sunsets. A sense of freedom, a sense of hope, a sense of newness, and a sense that something greater is happening than what you can see. So for about 2 weeks, my community and I waited for the results for the film. Finally, one afternoon, the White House released a short video of Michelle Obama announcing the winners. As I watched the film, my heart was beating so fast. Mrs. Obama said, "The winner is..." I don't remember who won, but it wasn't us. I was sad and I was disappointed. and I told our team that our movie wasn't made in vain. A few days later, one of my mentors, who has a connection to the White House, told me that our video didn't win because Mrs. Michelle Obama's schedule conflicted with the U of A's commencement schedule. I shook my head and I smiled, and I thought, well, at least I know in my heart that we were the true winners. Even though I was heartbroken, what I gained from that experience was that I had a newfound confidence to share stories on a large, broad platform. Now, as the director of Native SOAR, along with other team members, we have the opportunity to share with Indigenous students how to share their story on a platform. If you Google Native SOAR, you'll see about 200 videos of Indigenous students proclaiming their narratives. Situating ourselves in this place is critical. Earlier this year, I created an 80-minute documentary called Indigenous Feet, A Scholar's Pace. It features Indigenous runners who share their story about how they use running to navigate academic spaces. I mainly use my iPhone and GoPro to capture the film content. In early May, along with another Indigenous filmmaker, we premiered our film at the Lost Cinema. Over 300 people came to our premiere. I felt so much love from our Tucson community. I received favorable reviews, especially from my PhD advisors. So much so that my documentary is going to be my future dissertation. Looking back at Mrs. Riley's 5th grade class, I've come a long way from the student who felt like I couldn't share my story. Now my generation has the ability to retell and to rewrite history in the way that we want to. Situating ourselves in this place is critical. Thank you so much.